This is Notre Dame, one of the most culturally significant architectural landmarks in the historical city of Paris. For over 850 years, Notre Dame has stood as more than just a beautiful cathedral. It's a symbol deeply ingrained in France's history and culture. Located in the center of Paris, this architectural marvel has witnessed centuries of ups and downs, making it a beloved landmark globally. When you look at it, you can see how its walls hold on to history. Construction of Notre Dame began in 1163 during the Gothic era under the reign of King Louis II. The construction was completed in 1345, making the construction period about 182 years. With its impressive facade, intricate flying buttresses, and stunning stained glass windows, the cathedral showcased the architectural brilliance of its time. Throughout the years, Notre Dame has faced damage for several reasons. According to the cathedral's website, there was once a point where Notre Dame was in a stage of disrepair and close to the point of demolishing. However, Napoleon, crowned emperor inside the cathedral in 1804, saved it. The cathedral even faced threats during World War II, so the stained glass rose window had to be removed until the war's end. But the damage that was to come in 2019 was much bigger than any previous ones. In April 2019, a fire swept through Notre Dame. The world watched in shock as this tragedy took place, prompting an international outpouring of grief and support. French President Emmanuel Macron made a promise to rebuild Notre Dame, emphasizing its integral role in the country's soul. It is estimated that around 6:18 p.m. on the 15th of April 2019, the fire started in the cathedral's attic. Just 2 minutes later, at 6:20, the first fire alarm went off, and the building's guards quickly evacuated everyone who was inside at the time. It was reported that most of the worshippers and tourists inside were initially immobilized by shock, but evacuated the premises in an orderly manner. One of the guards was then sent to investigate the triggered alarm, but was mistakenly given the wrong location. Around 15 minutes later, when the guard returned to find no signs of fire, the employee who gave the wrong location realized their error. The guard was then sent to the correct location, but during all this time that the fire had been burning in the attic, the fire brigade had still not been notified of the incident. By the time the guard arrived in the attic, the fire had been raging for more than half an hour already. At exactly 6:51 p.m., the fire brigade had finally been notified and quickly arrived at the scene. Less than 10 minutes later, when the firefighters arrived at the scene just past 7 p.m., flames were already visible from the outside, blaze advancing unstoppable, creeping across the roof, engulfing the spire, and then we're talking about one of the great symbols of Paris and all of Western civilizations. In order to further preserve the cathedral structure, the fire was fought from the inside, which posed a greater risk to the firefighters, but ensured that no flames would inadvertently be blown inwards. Additionally, the fire brigade made use of lower water pressure to minimize the potential damage to the main structure. This made it more difficult for the firefighters to effectively extinguish the flames. At 7:50, the structure's iconic spire collapsed and fell onto the roof, which had been burning for almost 2 hours now. By this point, the fire had already spread to the wooden framework of one of the towers, which housed the cathedral's bells. Firefighters were worried that the bells were to fall from the burning tower. It would have greatly damaged the rest of the structure. So by 8:30 p.m., firefighting efforts were refocused into saving the towers instead. Finally, by 9:45, the fire was declared to be under control. By the morning of the next day, the fire had officially been declared to be extinguished. Thanks to the effort of more than 400 firefighters, the cathedral's main structure, facade, towers, buttresses, and iconic stained glass were all saved. More than 2/3 of the roof, along with the entire wooden spire, were destroyed. As most of the debris fell onto the stone vault underneath music, a small section of the vault also collapsed during the incident, which allowed some of the debris from the roof and spire to reach all the way down to the floor. Thankfully, because of an ongoing renovation at the time, some of the artwork stored in the building was removed for safekeeping even before the fire started. Notably, 16 religious statues depicting the 12 apostles and 4 evangelists, which had been on the spire for more than a century, were removed for cleaning. During the renovations, most of Notre Dame's most valuable and important relics, such as the crown Jesus supposedly wore during his crucifixion, and an actual piece of the cross where Jesus was crucified, were left unharmed within the cathedral's treasury. The rooster-shaped reliquary placed on top of the wooden spire, which collapsed, was later found to be slightly deformed and damaged amongst the debris. The fire soon became the top news story all over the world as the international community stood in solidarity with the French people. French President Emmanuel Macron was one of the first to share his thoughts about the incident. "Our thoughts go out to all Catholics and to the French people. Like all of my fellow citizens, I am sad to see this part of us burn tonight," he wrote on Twitter. Former U.S. President Barack Obama expressed his solidarity by writing, "We're thinking of the people of France in your time of grief." The late Queen Elizabeth II wrote a letter directly to President Macron saying, "My thoughts and prayers are with those who worship at the cathedral and all of France at this difficult time." Financial difficulties just a day after the fire, French officials who were investigating the cause announced that they saw no evidence pointing towards the incident being a deliberate act. The investigation quickly focused on the ongoing renovation work on the cathedral when the fire occurred. According to the experts, the renovations posed a great risk of fire as the space surrounding the roof was primarily made of dry wood, which could have easily caught on fire. An initial hypothesis as to the cause of the fire was cigarette butts found on the renovation scaffolding during that preliminary investigation. The company responsible for the renovations did confirm that, going against regulation, their workers indeed smoked on site, but refused to acknowledge that it could have started the fire in the first place. Another leading theory is that the tower's electric bell-ringing apparatus may have malfunctioned and caused a short circuit that ultimately led to the tragic incident. Today, almost 4 years since the Notre Dame caught on fire, a definitive cause still has not been found. Shortly after the fire, an international fundraising event to reconstruct the historic cathedral began. Less than a day after French President Emmanuel Macron announced a public call for donations, almost $1 billion had already been pledged by French billionaires and corporations. A design competition was then announced to redesign the collapsed roof and spire of the building. This quickly drew criticism from academics and professionals, saying that the French government is neglecting the comprehensive legal process in restoring and preserving cultural heritages, such as the Notre Dame. 3 months after the incident, the French National Assembly passed a law that required the restoration to preserve the structure's historical, artistic, and architectural design. The first stage of the restoration began in October 2019 and involved the stabilization of the entire structure in order to prevent it from collapsing. Around 300 tons of melted metal scaffolding and rubble had to be removed before any reconstruction could begin. The first stage was completed in November 2020. By September 2021, it was announced that all the necessary safety work on the cathedral had finally been completed. Shortly after, actual reconstructive work on the structure had finally begun. During a preventive dig that was conducted before any actual scaffolding could be built for the restoration, several archaeological relics, such as statues and tombs, were unearthed. These newly discovered artifacts were dated as far back as the 12th and 13th centuries, back when the structure was still under construction. Today, restoration work continues to be conducted on-site. A collective effort from architectural and structural experts from all over Europe and the rest of the world are hard at work to restore the 13th century cathedral back to its former glory. The Notre Dame is currently scheduled to reopen by 2024, just in time for the 2024 Summer Olympics, which will be hosted by the city of Paris. What do you think about the ongoing restoration of the Notre Dame de Paris? Do you think they will be able to complete it before the 2024 deadline? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.